Good evening. Hello, everyone. Mark Pinto with you from Phoenixville Public Library, and welcome to tonight's presentation from the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. Start today and retire tomorrow. And we're pleased to have with us for a second time around here is George Dillman. He's the Consumer Outreach Specialist with the Department of Banking and Securities. George, welcome. Thanks for giving us your time tonight, and take it away.
No problem, Mark. Thank you. Yeah, welcome everyone to my present. As Mark said, my presentation on START, which stands for Start Today and Retire Tomorrow. I like to say that this presentation is not as much of a how-to save and invest for our future goals, aka retirement, as it is a should do and why to. Even though the how-to part is important, in this day and age, with the information that we have available, modern technology and people that are willing to help us, are available to help us, the how-to part might be the easiest part. For a lot of people, it's the doing it. We'll talk more about that as we go along. Again, as Mark said, my name is George Dillman. I'm the Consumer Outreach Specialist with the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. And two things about me. First of all, I'm not an expert with the finger quotes, if you will, when it comes to saving and investing for retirement. But as I said, we don't need to be experts. I am learning that I've learned a lot more since when I started doing this presentation. But then again, we don't need to be experts when it comes to saving and investing, and saving and investing successfully for our short-term and long-term goals. Also, I've been passionate about saving and investing for my retirement, my long-term goals, ever since I was about the age of 13. When I was about 13 years old, I went to a local amusement park with a group of friends of mine. While I was at the park, I noticed a gentleman working in the park that just did not look happy being there doing what he was doing. First of all, he was up in age, like 75 or 80 years of age. Not that that matters, but the job that he was doing, he was struggling with. It was a dirty job. You could see the disgusted look in his face. And you could pretty much tell that was probably the last place he wanted to be, in that park working that job. And I looked at that gentleman, excuse me. I looked at that gentleman and I thought, I don't think this guy wants to be, I don't think this guy's working this job because he wants to. I think this guy is working this job because he has to. And I thought right then and there, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be 75 or 80 years of age working a job that I have to work because I need the money. Now, do I want to be 75 or 80 years of age working a job that I want to work because I want to continue working? They say there's some health benefits to that, keeping the body active, the mind active, get to socialize with people. Yes, but big difference between doing it because you have to and doing it because you want to. And that's the position we want to be in when it comes time to retire, doing something like that because we want to do it, not because we have to do it. All right, a little bit about our agency. The Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities regulates financial services and works to ensure consumers and businesses are well informed about the marketplace. Kind of what I'm doing here today. I'm part of the outreach group, and we go out into the communities. More and more, we're doing it live and in person again, but a lot of virtually now because of especially what's happening. But reaching out across the Commonwealth, conducting presentations, what I like to call saving, investing, and most importantly, in some cases, protecting what you save and invest. All right, with that, let's start. And first of all, and I have to apologize, this is the one presentation that I do that is scripted. I jokingly say if I don't follow the script, it'll probably be a 3-hour presentation. So I'll read the script and we'll move along that way and get this done in time. All right, so today we're going to talk about retirement planning. National statistics show that most of us are not saving enough for retirement. Many of us aren't saving anything at all. We have to remember for those late starters that it's never too late to start. And of course, on the flip side, it's never too early. In fact, the earlier the better, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. Look at the numbers. According to the National Institute on Retirement Security, 45% of Americans have nothing saved for retirement. Some experts say that it's as high as 50%, by the way. So 45 to 50% have nothing saved for retirement. No retirement account assets, nothing, nada, zilcho. The median retirement account for all working age households is only $2,500, and median savings for those nearing retirement is only $14,500. This is our goal our goals for tonight, I should say. For those that don't have a plan in place, and that plan is actually three parts. Not only is it a plan to start saving, if we're not doing it, to start saving and investing for our retirement goals, or maybe in some cases to save and invest a little more. But it's also to pay down debt, because if we retire, no matter what we have saved, we might have to use a good chunk of that to pay off the debt that we have, that we've accumulated over the years. So part of that, is paying down our debt, and in some cases, or many cases, eliminating debt. We also need to save for an emergency fund, cash readily available that we can use for emergencies, for those emergencies that will come up, not if they come up, when they come up. Experts say that we should have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in an emergency fund. And if we don't have that, we need to build one. We need to build that so we have those funds available, so we don't have to dip into our retirement accounts to get that money to pay for those emergencies. So if we don't have a plan in place to pay down debt, to save for a nice, healthy emergency fund, and to start saving / investing for our long-term retirement goals, our goal tonight is to at least start thinking about that and planning that. For those that have a plan in place, the goal is to get you to review that plan. Do I have debt paid down enough? I have an emergency fund, but do I have enough in that emergency fund? Am I saving enough for my retirement goals? Am I saving the correct way for where I'm at in my career? So for those in that situation, the goal is to get you to review that to make sure you're on track. For those that have a plan in place and they know it's a good plan, George, I have my debt paid down. Some of it is paid off. Most of it is paid off. I have a nice, healthy emergency fund, and I'm putting enough away, and I'm investing it the right way for my retirement goals. Then the goal today is to remind you why you're doing it, and to stay on course. Stay on course. Keep your eye on the prize, so to speak, because we can easily be taken off course by something that comes along, like a get-rich-quick scheme that turns out to be a scam that takes this money away from us. So the goal tonight is to remind you why you're doing it and to get you to stay on course with those goals. And then finally, to protect it, because as we accumulate it, there are those out there looking to take it away from us, scammers, fraudsters, and we don't want to let them do that. All right, so with the presentation, I have two videos that I show. The first one is on basic saving, investing, for our future. And there's 3 key points that this video is going to make, and we'll lightly cover them afterwards, highlight them, and talk about them a little bit after the video. So here's the first video.
The number of Americans who worry about their standard of living during retirement has hit an all-time high, and for good reason. 45% of us have yet to put even a dime away for retirement. But building your own nest egg isn't impossible. Just ask 34-year-old Matt Lowther.
Retirement wasn't really in the forefront of my mind. I knew I wanted a retirement plan. I just had no idea what it would look like.
Like many of us, Matt had little personal finance experience. He had options for retirement plans, investment opportunities, and savings plans, but didn't know where to start.
Personal finance wasn't something that we talked about. To me, it felt like going to a horse track and you're picking the horses. I had to make a decision when I was 26 that was going to affect me when I was 60, 65, and beyond.
Matt didn't have a lot of time for something that was years down the road. but he knew it was important, so he began to look for trustworthy resources to help him make a decision.
I basically started reading. A lot of this stuff is very eye-opening, and it was very basic level information that I was able to build upon just by reading.
Janet Bodner is the editor of Kiplinger's Personal Finance magazine. As she sees it, a gradual approach is key.
You just need the basics and then build on those basics. Think of it as building blocks that you're building on really throughout your life. You don't have to know everything when you're 21 years old.
I didn't have any special skills or any special knowledge. I sought out the knowledge.
There's multiple ways to invest, and it's a personal decision. So when you read maybe a couple books, a couple websites, it gives you a nice broad array of information on different investing topics, and then you narrow it down to determine what's best for you.
One mistake that young people make is thinking that they don't have enough money. You do not have to have a lot of money to invest. You can start with $20 a paycheck. With time on your side, the small amounts that you contribute when you're young grow into huge amounts by the time you're ready to retire.
That's because you have time on your side. Each year's growth can generate its own growth the next year. A powerful wealth-building process called compounding. Think of it as a snowball. A small snowball like this starts to build over time as it collects other snow. The longer you roll the snowball, the more snow it collects.
You can put a little away now, and it'll end up being more than if you put a whole lot away later.
Let's say Matt invests $2,000 every year. For simplicity, we will use a round number like a 10% gain from interest. From age 25 to 35, Matt invests for 10 years, but then he stops investing. He doesn't spend it, he leaves it there until he retires at 65. Meanwhile, Edward starts at age 35 and invests the same amount as Matt of $2,000, again at that same round number of 10% a year until he is 65. Edward has contributed a total of $60,000 over 30 years, while Matt only contributes a total of $20,000 over 10 years. Edward has invested $40,000 more than Matt, but Matt will have more money when it comes time for retirement because Matt had a longer time period for compounding on his interest, dividends, and money. Matt would have over $612,000, and Edward would only have $362,000. A difference of $250,000. The interest for Edward would be about $302,000. Matt's 10-year investment will pay him more than $592,000 in interest. If Matt continued to invest throughout his working career, he would have a grand total of $974,000 at retirement. That is $612,000 more than Edward, showing the importance of investing early and continuing to invest. Unlike the 45% of Americans who have saved nothing toward retirement, zero.
You don't need to have a finance major in school. You just need to make sure you take the time to read a couple books, go on a couple websites, but look at a couple different sources to learn some of the basics for investing.
The earlier you start, the easier it is the older you get. The worst thing you can do is nothing.
Find out more by visiting wi65.org or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
All right, yeah, wi65.org, great website to go to. It's like a collaboration between PBS, agencies like our agencies have all kind of partnered, and it's a number of different videos on saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest, and for different age groups, millennials, baby boomers, Gen Xers, so on and so forth. This video that I showed is called Investing in Your 30s. However, I think it has application to anybody, to anyone in any part of their career, whatever age they're at. And because of these three main points that again, we're going to talk a little bit about. First of all, as they point out, we don't need a lot to start saving and investing for our future retirement, our long-term retirement goals. As Janet Bodner said, $20 a paycheck, $30 a paycheck gets it going. Or maybe if we're already doing it, maybe an extra $20 or $30 a paycheck, so we're doing even more. We don't need to be experts on investing to invest successfully. A little bit of reading, a little bit of research, and with all the entities out there that nowadays can help us, you know, the modern technology and everything that we have available to us, it should be very easy for us to be able to do this and do this successfully without being experts in it. And we don't need to. Oh, I'm sorry. And you know, the sooner we start, you know, the better, the sooner that retirement, that compound interest snowball kicks in and really starts to take off. And I'm going to have another slide on that a little bit later. It kind of covers that again, and why the sooner we start, the better, the sooner that compound interest snowball really starts to kick in. Okay, so the STaRT program was developed to help us make wise decisions to reach our retirement goals. We're going to do this by looking at 3 career phases: early career, mid-career, and late career. But first, how do you picture your retirement to be? I have some slides on how some people picture their retirement. Take a look, see if some of these match what you're looking to do after you retire. How about a nice cold drink by the pool? Spending time with the grandkids, nice long walks out in the country, you know, little hunting, little fishing, puttering in the garden, going on trips, golfing, puttering in the workshop. Few employers offer traditional pensions. Many, 51 to 52%, do not offer any retirement plans at all. It's important to know we need a plan. Having a plan is crucial to meeting our retirement goals. It's important to know how much we need to retire the way we want to retire, not the way we have to retire. And remember, $1 today won't be worth $1 tomorrow, aka inflation. So we have to factor that in as well. So this is what retirement could look like for those who have a plan. What could retirement look like for those who don't have a plan in place? Let's take a look at the same slides with a little bit of a different angle to them. How about having to serve that guy by the pool his drink after drink after drink, and make sure you get that drink right, that drink order right? Or having to work in a daycare center, or become a professional dog walker. How about having to hunt and fish for your own food, or grow your own food in the gardens because we can't afford to go to the grocery store all the time? Or become a golf caddy working for tips, right? Or driving loud, angry tourists on coach trips. Become a deckhand on a boat, right? How about having to look at pictures of Paris, Rome, and London because we can't afford to go to these places? And finally, how about having to work in a modern day sweatshop, probably for some supervisor half your age, barking orders at you, you're not working hard enough, you're not going fast enough? Same slides, two different scenarios. Those with a plan, those without a plan. And by the way, I'm not poking fun at any of those professions. And for example, and you know, here's a good example. You know, I've known several people that have retired from their jobs and went to work in daycare centers, not because they needed the money, just they wanted to do it. They love kids, they love working with kids, they wanted to stay busy, stay active, went to work in daycare centers and loved it. What's the difference? The difference is they were doing it because they wanted to, not because they had to. Big difference, big difference. This scenario, we're looking at having to do it because we did not have a plan in place. Okay, we're talking about these points because look at the statistics. As a whole, we're not saving enough. Many of us aren't saving anything at all. Gen Xers are falling very short. We need to start saving, and the earlier, the better. Let's talk about compound interest. This is a quote from Albert Einstein. Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And I think we know what he means by this, right? Would we rather earn compound interest or pay compound interest? unfortunately, if whether it's us or people that we know, there are people out there paying more, if not a lot more, in compound interest. Loans, and they're going into debt. Those plastic credit cards that get us into trouble. And what we're looking to do is to turn that around, to pay down that debt and start earning compound interest rather than paying it. This is a slide on the power of compound interest. Two scenarios. The first scenario is we're going to save $84 a month over the next 40 years. We're not going to put it anywhere where it's going to earn us compound interest. We're going to put it underneath our mattress or buried in jars out in our backyard. After 40 years with no compound interest, we're going to have a little over $40,000. Not too bad. Not too bad. Different scenario. I decide to put that someplace where it's going to earn me compound interest. I'm going to say a 10% interest rate, compound interest. Over the next 40 years with compound interest, I'm going to have close to $500,000. A little bit of a difference, right? This is a slide. We saw this in the video on the time value of money. And the sooner we start saving and investing, the better. And the first scenario, we have Susan. Susan, at the age of 25, starts saving $5,000. She starts investing $5,000 a year over the next 10 years for a total of $50,000. At the age of 35, she stops investing. She doesn't take any of it out. She just stops investing and she lets compound interest kick in. Bill waits 10 years. He waits until he's 35. And then Bill starts investing $5,000 a year over the next 30 years for a total of $150,000 versus Susan's $50,000. Oh, by the way, Susan is the dotted middle line. She stops at 35 and compound interest. She's the dotted middle line. Bill is the bottom line, right? He invests 3 times as much as she did over the next 30 years. But at the end of the 30 years, who has more money? Bill's the bottom line. Susan has him beat out by about $6,000, obviously not because she invested more, but because she started earlier, even though she stopped investing at a certain point because she started earlier and compound interest kicked in earlier and took off earlier. She kept pace, she kept ahead of him over those years. And you see how in all 3 examples, how after about the first 10 or 15 years, it really starts to take off. You might not see much of anything over the first 5, 10, 15 years, but after about the first 10 or 15 years, it really starts to take off. And that's where we really see a jump in that compound interest snowball. Now, I don't show this slide to say that it's doom and gloom for anybody who didn't start saving and investing, at the age of 25 for their retirement. It's all to point out the sooner we start, the sooner that kicks in, because let's face it, Bill is certainly better off. He's not better off than Susan, but Bill is certainly better off than somebody who waited until they were 40 or 45 to start investing. And that person is certainly better off than somebody who waited until they were 45 or 50 to start investing, and so on and so forth. All right, so how much do we need to retire? Retirement statistics are not good. Again, as a whole, we're not saving enough. But cutting costs and saving isn't rocket science. And when we say cutting, we're talking about cutting down, not cutting out. We think about things that we can cut back on, or in some cases, maybe swap out, where we can save some funds and maybe just enough, that additional $20 or $30 that we need to start investing, or to start investing a little more. Could I cut down on those coffees or lattes or cappuccinos that I get? Or could I go with a lower priced option? Could I stop going to my fancy coffee shop and paying $4, probably more in this day and age, but $4 for a nice cup of coffee? Could I start on a daily basis? If I go out and do that every day at $4 a pop, I'm looking at $120 a month that I'm paying for a coffee, for nice fancy coffee at a nice fancy coffee shop. But if I switch that up, if I either cut back on those or I switch it up and I decide to stop at the local convenience store where maybe the coffee isn't quite as good, but maybe good enough that at half the price and maybe twice the size, I'm just by swapping out and going with a different option, I've just now cut in half my coffee allowance, if you will. And I'm now saving myself $60 a month. At that rate, I have the $20 or $30 that I can start putting into that long-term retirement account, and another additional $30 that can put elsewhere, maybe to beef up my emergency fund. And we do this with other things as well. You know, can we start brown bagging it more for lunch as opposed to eating out for lunch, and cut back that way? You know, do we need that brand new sports car or SUV, or can we make do with a lower priced model, a used car, a couple years used, but a lower priced model, or maybe get the same car serviced or continue to service the same vehicle? So we look at ways that we can either cut back or swap out to free up those funds to pay down debt, to build a nice healthy emergency fund, and to start saving and investing for our retirement goals. Let's not deprive ourselves, but find ways to work cutting down into our daily life. And let's think about not buying stuff that we really don't have the money for. Here's a quote from Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, the gentleman who only has about $100 billion in his bank account. If you buy things you do not need, soon you will have to sell things you need. And I think we know where he's going with that. You know, people that, you know, we have to have this, we have to have that. There's the old saying, keeping up with the Joneses. The Joneses have top of the line, matching top of the line, all the bells and whistles, SUVs sitting out in their driveway. We feel we have to go out and get that as well. They go on these nice fancy vacations a couple times a year. We feel we have to do the same thing to keep up, and so on and so forth. For all we know, the Joneses or the Smiths or whoever could be one paycheck away from total financial ruin because they're so far in debt. And now, because we feel like we need to keep pace with them, we're headed down the same path. We don't have to do that. Somebody to emulate might be somebody like Warren Buffett. Gentleman Warren Buffett is the guy who still lives in the same house that he bought back in the 1950s, long before he had $100 billion in the bank account. Now, bigger than any house I'm ever going to live in. But for the money that he has and what he could certainly live in now, he says, why do I need it? I'm perfectly happy with what I have. I've seen several things on lately on Warren Buffett, where every time he goes out and gets a new car, it's not a new car. He gets a car that's a couple years old. He still does this. One of his favorite restaurants that he likes to go to is McDonald's. And from what I hear, when he goes there, he uses coupons. So maybe this is somebody to emulate. You know, we look at, or, you know, where we're, you know, in some cases wasting money, throwing money away because we need to try and keep up with this person and that person, when we should be taking stock and putting this away for our future goals. We want to cut costs. We want to pay down and eliminate debt, then start saving it and investing. We want to make money work for us, not against us. Remember that Albert Einstein quote. All right. Now let's start our phases. Some of you are in the early career, some are in mid, and some are in the late career. The first phase in planning for retirement should start the moment you enter the workforce on a permanent or full-time basis. While retirement might not be your primary concern today, it should be a consideration. Financial decisions made today will have a major impact in later stages of retirement planning and how you live in retirement. Time is on your side, but do not wait too long to start your plan. Start today, because tomorrow may never come. You put off and put off and put off, and next thing you know, we're 65 and have nothing to show for it but a Social Security check and maybe a lot of debt to boot. All right, so where do you want to be when you retire? How you live, save, and invest today should be in line with how you want to retire. Decide how you want to retire and plan accordingly. And here's the examples I use. You know, not everybody's going to need the same amount of money, the same things in retirement. You have one couple who maybe they live in a nice little house. It's very comfortable for them. They have the house paid off. They love spending time at home, puttering in the garden, puttering in the workshop. They love cooking meals at home. They love making their homemade popcorn and popping a movie on Netflix rather than going out. They get the same car serviced year after year, so on and so forth. They're going to have different financial needs than another couple who maybe want to have maybe a bigger and better house in retirement. They want to continue going on nice vacations, going out to nice restaurants. They like to get a brand new car every year or every other year. Is either one better than the other? No, it's different needs, different financial needs. So we need to decide how we want to live, and then we plan accordingly so we can live that way when we do retire. Start by asking yourself these questions. Where do I want to be financially? Does the job I have provide enough income? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I understand basic investment principles? Do I know where to find a licensed financial professional? Am I taking full advantage of my retirement options? Are my current habits getting me to my goal? A to-do list can be helpful. Now, I forwarded a copy of these to-do lists that come with this program to Mark, and I think Mark sent that out to everyone that signed up for the presentation. And Mark, as we both know, you can make that available for anybody else who views the presentation. These to-do lists, the first couple pages of the to-do list are checkoffs. It's like a checkoff for every phase of our career, early career, mid-career, late career. I check things off as I go along, so I'm following my plan. And we have that for every career phase. The last couple pages are videos that you can watch, websites that you can go to on saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest to help us achieve our goals. Something else that we can do to reach our goals is create a SMART plan. What's a SMART plan? That's a plan that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and has a time component to it. And it doesn't have to be anything long and drawn out. It doesn't have to be the next Gettysburg Address. Something as simple as, I will, down at the bottom there, I will save $500,000 in my retirement fund within 40 years. Now, let's take a look at that. Let's make sure it is a SMART plan. Measurable, I think we can, oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Specific, is it specific? $500,000, I think, is specific. By the way, experts say that if we set specific and what they term as exciting goals, much more achievable than non-specific goals. Rather than saying, I want to save a lot of money in my retirement account by the time I retire 4 years, well, what's a lot of money? We just had a slide where a lot of money to one couple is different to another couple. So it's much harder to achieve because we really don't know what we're going for. But if we set a specific goal, a specific number, and what they term as exciting, much more achievable. So specific, yes, $500,000 specific. Measurable, I think we can measure that. Attainable and realistic. Let's shelve that for now. We'll come back to that. Does it have a time component to it? 40 years, right? 40 years. So is it attainable and realistic? Well, according to the investor calculator, the compound interest calculator at investor.gov, it is. Very easy to find, very easy to use, by the way. Investor.gov is the website, and you look for the compound interest calculator, and it's very easy to use. There's others out there. Social Security has one, and other places will have one. This is one that I found, a government website that is very easy to use. So according to this calculator, it is attainable, realistic, and attainable. I plugged in the numbers for Ned, and I came up with a little over $500,000 in Ned's retirement account. Now, did I manipulate these numbers to get the answer that I wanted? Yes, I did. But you think about it, and this is what we would be doing is if we're using this calculator or a similar calculator as we're going along. And that's the reason for using it. As we're going along, we want to make sure we're on track. We're going to reach our goal, in this case of $500,000. So I'm going along and I realize, maybe Ned realizes, you know, I'm using that 10% again of interest. Ned realizes, oh my God, I'm only getting 7 or 8% with the way I'm investing. I'm only getting a 7 or 8% interest rate on my investments. I'm not going to hit my goal. What can I do? You know what? I just recently got a raise, or I did some figures, and I did some cutting back and some swapping, and I just freed up X number of dollars just by doing this. And if I add that amount to what I'm already putting away, I'm gonna reach my number. So we are manipulating these numbers as we go along. Okay, make saving and investing a habit. Start small if you have to, but start. Estimate what you will need in retirement. Ask for help if you need it. It's good to have professional help. Everyone, no matter what your income level, can save and invest money. You just have to get the right information, have a plan, and put that plan into action. And with that, that brings us to our second and final video on Mr. Earl. Earl Crawley never made more than $12 an hour in his career. But take a look at his portfolio at the time of this video.
Not long ago, I met Earl Crawley.
Hey, how you doing?
But everyone here calls him Mr. Earl.
Yeah, we can talk about some finances.
He's worked as an attendant at this parking lot in Baltimore for 44 years.
So you really think it's going to improve the gas?
Funny thing, though, everyone was asking Mr. Earl about money.
Nickel and dime, nickel and dime.
That's right. Is that booth his pulpit where he's preaching the gospel of investing?
Sure is.
Okay.
He makes my day every time I see him.
Oh, come on now, seriously. Investing?
How you like that gold now?
670.
Earl told me he's never made more than $12 an hour. Never earned more than $20,000 a year.
How you doing?
So how could he know something about corporate profits?
Spider's gonna get
I had to pry.
So Earl, what's your net worth?
$500,000.
$500,000
Yeah,
from working here.
working here.
That's amazing.
My last statement.
And there it is in his statements, over $500,000 net
$57.
worth on a parking lot wage. Now Mr. Earl had my full attention. How did he do it?
Stop working so hard and let the money work for you.
Earl's first lesson came at age 13. His mother had him working the fruit stalls to help pay the family bills. He got to keep just a few quarters for himself.
From the time my mother started taking my money that I earned on Lexington Market, that it wasn't money just to be thrown away. It was there to be used.
Economics aside, Earl had another obstacle to overcome.
Tebow is
He tells me he's dyslexic. Back in the 50s, that meant settling for a life of low-wage manual labor jobs. So Earl figured he'd better sock away what little money he was making. It was just $1 here and $1 there, starting with savings stamps, and that led to savings bonds. At 26, he got married. And by the late 60s, Earl was feeding 3 children on a meager $80 a week.
It was tough, but because we had to sacrifice a lot.
And the budget only got tighter when Earl and Beverly opted to send their kids to Catholic school instead of public school, which was free. Earl took extra jobs to pay the tuition, and you better believe he made every penny count.
Elementary school, I would ask for lunch money, and he would give me $1. Lunch was 85 cents. And he would reply before I walked out the door, "I want my change."
As the years rolled by, Earl kept saving what seemed like meaningless amounts. He started investing $25 each month into a mutual fund and did that consistently for 15 years. By the late 70s, his net worth was $25,000.
Later, as the children got older, he decided to play the stock market. And he bought 1 share, and, well, the rest is history.
He bought stock in blue chips like IBM and Coca-Cola that paid dividends, and
instead of taking the dividends and pocketing it, let it set or let it reinvest itself and to increase my shares. And the more shares I had, the more dividend I had. Eventually, the more money I have down the road.
So where did this so-called slow learner learn so much about mutual funds and blue chips and dividend reinvestment plans?
You're going to split this year.
It all comes back to that parking lot. And this is my favorite part of Earl's story. You see, his lot is smack dab in the middle of a financial district where he picked the brains of brokers and bankers and lawyers for their financial advice.
What's going on? You got any advice for me today in the markets?
No, I'm just trying to find out something from you.
All right.
Talk to everybody and listen to advice that everybody give me and take it from there.
Earl, why don't we take a look at what you've got in the portfolio now?
Earl had trouble reading, so instead, he listened. He believed in the power of compound interest and stocks for the long haul, which brings us back to the present. Today, Earl's stock portfolio alone is worth more than $500,000. And yes, his house is paid for. And no, he doesn't carry any credit card debt.
He's somebody to emulate not only as an investor, but as an individual, and how to live your life and make the best of what the Lord gave you.
Mr. Earl Crawley, if you'd like to check out the entire, because there's more to the video, you can go to YouTube and just search for Mr. Earl Super Saver, and you could pull up and view the video again and view the full video. But again, you know, never made more than $12 an hour in his career at the time of the video. Him and his wife raised 3 children who all attended private school, and in order to of course, you have to pay for private school. And rather than dipping into the retirement account, he went out and got part-time jobs to pay for that. At the time of the video, they had their mortgage paid off, and at the time of the video, they had a portfolio worth over $500,000. We can do this. We can all do this. Cutting back a little bit, putting more here, putting more there. We can all do this. Okay, so do your homework before investing. Make sure you're getting non-product promotional information, such as what we offer through our website. Number of different handouts that we have at our website at dobbs.pa.gov on saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest. And this is just an example of what we do have available. Okay, so we're ending phase 1 with this checklist, and we're ending it with this checklist. Ask if your employer offers a retirement plan. If so, take a look at it, make sure it's a good retirement plan, and 401k or some other a simple IRA or some other type of retirement plan, and consider getting into it, especially if there's a company match. Free money, for a lot of 401ks, there's a match up to a certain percent. Say a company's matching dollar for dollar up to 5% of what you put in. We're basically looking at an automatic 100% return on what we put in because they're matching it. So we certainly want to take a look at that, assuming they're good retirement plans. Not all of them are. So if not, research and choose your own retirement account, or if the company doesn't have one, research and choose your own retirement account, and or the right investment advisor to work with. Consider traditional and Roth IRAs as an option. Consider how, kind of switching it up a little bit, consider how other life decisions like having children or owning a home may impact your retirement resources. Make sure you're following money-wise practices. We want to keep debt paid down. We want to build a nice and keep a nice, healthy emergency fund and maximize our retirement funds. All right, phase 2, mid-career. Are we, am I on track? We're now in phase 2 of planning our retirement. Those in phase 2 or mid-career should have a plan in place. If not, they need to start. Early in our careers and younger, we can take more risks with investments. We have more time to recoup losses and make our money work for us. Further on, however, we want to make sure we're closely aligned with our goals and plans. We want to make sure we're taking fewer risks to ensure we achieve our retirement goals. And with that, this is a snapshot of the stock market from its inception to about where it's at today. It's a little, this snapshot is a little dated, but it still gets the point across, where, you know, they equate the stock market to a roller coaster. It goes up and down, up and down. But look where it started and look where it's at today and where it continues to go. Where has it gone over the long term? It's gone up. Experts say that large companies in this country, on average, have paid about a 10% return to their investors. That's where I get that 10% that I use, by the way. Will pay on average a 10% return to their investors, even with all those downturns built in, like the Great Depression back in the 30s or the Great Recession that we had about 10 or so years ago. About a 10% return over the long term. And this is what we're looking at. Investing in stocks, investing in the stock market is riskier than investing in something like bonds or money market funds. Not money market accounts, money market funds, which is an investment product. A lot safer than investing in stocks. But over the long term, where we ride out, we have time on our side. We can ride out those ups and downs, and over the long term with the stock market, we're going to make out better, on that rate of return. Now, as we get closer to retirement, or as we get closer where we're looking to start taking that money out, then we probably want to start looking at going more conservative with our investments, investing more in like bonds, money market funds, and safer, some cash, safer things like that. So we make sure that money is going to be there when we're ready to start taking it out. And that brings us to asset allocation. Again, when we're younger, we can go riskier with our investments because that's where we're going to get the better return over the long term. As we get closer to retirement, we start pulling back on that and going, more with bonds, money market funds, even some cash, still dabbling in stocks, still working with stocks, but going a little bit more conservative as we get older. And this is what we're talking about each phase of our career, depending on where we are at. Regularly review your retirement plan. Make sure you are on track with your goals. Remember to account for inflation. $1 today won't be worth $1 tomorrow. Meet with your investment advisor regularly if you choose to have one. Sorry, if you choose to have one. Okay. Stay in tune with what your retirement savings and investments are doing. Keep debt under control. I think I skipped ahead here. I'm sorry. There we go. Stay in tune with what your retirement savings and investments are doing. Keep debt under control and emergency savings healthy. However, even well thought out plans can be derailed. Have contingency plans in place. For example, a part-time job for those uncertain economic conditions such as a wage freeze. Use additional income from raises or elimination of debt to add to your retirement savings. And here's an example. You have a couple who pay off their mortgage. Maybe they pay off the mortgage early. They're used to sending in the old-fashioned check every month to pay that mortgage. They pay off the mortgage. They're used to sending that check in. They don't miss that money. So they decide, rather than, of course, the mortgage is paid off, let's start sending that money in to beef up our retirement account so we can add additional funds to beef that up, till we get to retirement. Switching up a little bit, one way to prepare for retirement is life planning. Make sure your life and end of life plans are in order and carried out as you wish. All right, phase 3. Are we there yet? This is our last phase, or phase 3. If you're within 10 years of retirement, you're in the final stretch. You should be in your peak earning years. You want to be hyper vigilant about making sure you're making sound financial decisions. Beware of those great investment opportunities with the finger quotes, those get rich quick schemes. You get approached by somebody offering you this great investment opportunity, high rates of return, guaranteed rates of return at little to no risk, usually in a quick turnover period of time. Do you know who offered all that? A gentleman we all know by the name of Bernie Madoff. And we know what happened there. Largest Ponzi scheme ever. Number of people lost a lot of money, in some cases their entire life savings. So we have to be careful. And as we get older, we get closer to retirement and into retirement, we have big red targets on us when it comes to scammers. So we really have to start to be more vigilant about that. Be aware that retirees have a huge red target on them when it comes to scammers. Learn how to identify the signs of fraud to avoid it, and what to do if you are a victim. With less than 10 years until retirement, you want to assess your savings and investments to date. You want to make sure that you are prepared for the retirement that you want, not the retirement that you have to take. Situations could arise that could leave you with insufficient retirement funds, such as medical expenses. Investing additional funds could help these situations. The curveballs life throws at us later in life, like forced early retirement, tend to have harsher impacts. Make sure you plan ahead on how to meet those challenges if they arise. Now, if money wasn't an option, we talked earlier about that gentleman that I saw when I was 13 at the amusement park, working that job because he had to, because he needed the money. Now we're talking about doing something in retirement because we want to continue working. We want to stay active, keep the body active, the mind active, socialize a little bit, and maybe even make a few extra dollars or even do volunteer work. You know, if we're looking to do that, of course, our option in this situation, we're not doing it because we have to, doing it because we want to. The whole idea is to plan ahead. And if we decide, for example, say I decide I want to be a teacher, I want to teach part-time after I retire from my full-time job. But I need to go back and take a few courses in order to do that. While I'm working the full-time job, I take those courses that I need. So I'm planning ahead so that when I retire, I can jump into that new part-time job that I always wanted to do. Anticipate inflation and tax implications. What you don't want is to outlive your retirement money. And none of us wants to be 100 years old or broke. So again, we want to plan accordingly to make sure we have enough to see us that through the rest of our lives. Learn the warning signs and how to protect yourself from fraud, identity theft, etc. Now more than ever, you need to make sure your investment is safe and sound. So in conclusion, start today and retire tomorrow. Don't put off until tomorrow, because tomorrow may never come. We put off. The next thing you know, we're 65 years old and nothing to show for it but a Social Security check. And we know how far that's going to get us. If you've already started, review it, add to it, make changes to it if needed. If you've started and reviewed it and it looks good, stay the course, remind yourself why you're doing it, and don't get derailed from that. Stay the course. And finally, protect yourself, because again, there are those out there who are going to want to take it from us. We don't want to let them do that. Because again, what we don't want is to be 75 or 80 years old, broke, working a job that we have to work because we need the money. What we want to be is we want to be in a situation where we're 75 or 80 years old, and it's our choice as to whether we want to continue working or not. We're doing it on our terms. And with that, I will say thank you, and I will take questions from the audience.